Florence, 15th century, city of splendor and wealth, but also of intrigue and betrayal. At the center of power, Lorenzo de Medici, the Magnificent, governs with intelligence and influence, attracting both admirers and enemies. Among these enemies, one family would dare to challenge his rule in an audacious coup, the Pazzi. On April 26, 1478, in the majestic cathedral of Santa Maria del Fiore, a deadly plan was set in motion. Knives were drawn, blood was spilled, and one of the most dramatic moments in Italian history unfolded before a horrified crowd. But what led to this moment? Who masterminded this conspiracy? Today we will dive behind the scenes of this historical thriller, meet its key players, and understand how a failed assassination attempt forever altered the balance of power in Florence. In the 15th century, Florence was not just a prosperous city, it was the beating heart of the Renaissance. Its streets were alive with merchants, artists, and intellectuals, while imposing palaces symbolized the wealth of its most influential families. But behind this facade of splendor, a silent battle for power was taking place. At the top of the hierarchy was the Medici family, bankers who transformed their fortune into political power. Under Lorenzo de Medici's leadership, Florence flourished culturally, but his rule was not liked by everyone. To many, Lorenzo was an illegitimate ruler, a usurper who governed without an official title, relying only on influence and strategic alliances. Among his most dangerous rivals were the Pazzi, an aristocratic banking family who saw the Medici as an obstacle to their own rise. But they were not alone. Pope Sixtus IV, interested in expanding the church's power over Florence, saw Lorenzo as an impediment. When financial, political, and religious interests collide, conspiracies are only a matter of time. The backdrop of this conflict was set. But who were the ones responsible for orchestrating such an audacious attack on one of the most powerful men in Italy? No conspiracy is born out of thin air. Behind the assassination attempt on Lorenzo de Medici, there was a group of characters with their own ambitions, resentments, and plans. The attack was not the work of a single man, but of a network of conspirators who believed Florence needed a new leader and were willing to kill for it. The most prominent name was Jacopo Pazzi, the patriarch of the family. He viewed the Medici as longtime enemies and desired to restore the prestige of his clan at any cost. His fury toward Lorenzo grew when Lorenzo used his influence to prevent the Pazzi from securing profitable contracts with the papacy. For Jacopo, overthrowing Lorenzo was not just a political matter, but a matter of honor. At his side was his nephew, Francesco Pazzi, an impulsive and dangerous man. He would be the one to carry out the plan, tasked with eliminating Lorenzo and Giuliano de Medici with his own hands. His enthusiasm for the conspiracy made him an essential player in the plot, but the Pazzi were not alone. Girolamo Riario, the nephew of Pope Sixtus IV, helped mastermind the assassination. The pontiff, though not directly involved, saw Lorenzo as an obstacle and turned a blind eye to his allies' plans. Therefore, the conspiracy was not just a rivalry between families that had the backing of Rome. With the conspirators identified and the plan set, only one detail remained: the right moment to strike. And that moment came in one of the most unlikely places, a church during Mass. The plan was laid out. The chosen day was April 26, 1478. During a solemn Mass at the imposing cathedral of Santa Maria del Fiore, the religious heart of Florence, the choice of location was no accident. The conspirators knew that there, the Medici brothers would be vulnerable, surrounded by hundreds of unarmed worshippers. The attack would be quick and devastating. Lorenzo and Giuliano de Medici arrived at the cathedral unaware that they were about to be the targets of one of the boldest conspiracies in Italian history. The assassins were in position. Francesco Pazzi and Bernardo Bandini were tasked with attacking Giuliano, while two other conspirators would try to kill Lorenzo. The first blow struck Giuliano. Francesco Pazzi lunged at him with brutal violence, stabbing him repeatedly. Giuliano fell, bloodied, with no chance to defend himself. Meanwhile, Lorenzo realized what was happening and, in an instinctive move, drew his dagger to defend himself. His quick reflexes saved his life. He managed to dodge the first blows and flee to the sacristy, where allies sealed the doors, preventing the conspirators from finishing the job. The cathedral, which moments before had been silent and solemn, plunged into chaos. Worshippers screamed, soldiers ran, and the assassins tried to escape. But a failed plan has fatal consequences. As soon as Lorenzo emerged from the sacristy, protected by his allies, the fate of the conspirators was sealed. The blow, which was supposed to mark the end of the Medici rule, turned into a catastrophic error. Lorenzo not only survived, but he now had a legitimate reason to crush his enemies mercilessly. The conspiracy had failed. The time for revenge had arrived. The failure of the conspiracy marked the beginning of a brutal backlash. Lorenzo de Medici was not just a survivor, he became the symbol of a strengthened regime. The people of Florence, loyal to the Medici family, reacted with fury to the attack. The chaos that had engulfed the cathedral soon spread to the streets. The conspirators had no time to flee. Francesco Pazzi was quickly captured and hanged from the windows of the Palazzo della Signoria, the seat of Florentine government. His uncle Jacopo Pazzi tried to escape, but was hunted down by the crowd, lynched, and thrown into the Arno River. Bernardo Bandini, another of the assassins, managed to flee the city, but was captured months later in Constantinople and extradited to Florence, where he met the same fate. The gallows. Lorenzo's wrath was not limited to those directly responsible for the crime. Anyone suspected of involvement in the conspiracy was arrested, tortured, and, in most cases, executed publicly. The Pazzi were eliminated as a political force. Their name was banned from official documents, their properties confiscated, and their lineage condemned to oblivion. Pope Sixtus IV, enraged by the retribution against his allies, attempted to retaliate by imposing sanctions against Florence. He excommunicated Lorenzo and threatened the city with a papal interdict, forbidding the celebration of Mass and sacraments. But Lorenzo, with his political skill, not only avoided war, he turned his survival into a trump card. The Pazzi attack was meant to mark the end of the Medici. Instead, it strengthened their dynasty. But what if the conspirators had been successful? How would history have changed? History is written by the victors, but what if the Pazzi had succeeded in eliminating Lorenzo and Giuliano de Medici? Florence's fate might have taken a completely different turn. Without Lorenzo, the city would have descended into chaos. He was not just a political leader, but the great patron of the arts and Renaissance culture. Without his patronage, artists like Leonardo da Vinci, Botticelli, and Michelangelo might have never found support to develop their works. The Italian Renaissance might have followed a different course, perhaps less brilliant. Politically, Florence would have fallen into the hands of the conspirators and their allies, like Pope Sixtus IV. This could have led to a city more subservient to the church, reducing the autonomy that Lorenzo fought to preserve. The Pazzi's influence would not have lasted long, as without a strong leader, internal disputes and external rivals could have fragmented Florence. Moreover, the Medici would not have disappeared so easily. The family had branches in other cities and a powerful financial network. Another member could have returned to reclaim control. The course of history, therefore, might have been only temporarily altered. In the end, the Pazzi conspiracy did not just fail, it strengthened the Medici dynasty, consolidating their power for another century. But its attempt left a valuable lesson. Even the most well-planned betrayals can have unforeseen consequences. The Pazzi conspiracy remains one of the most dramatic moments in the history of Florence, and by extension, Italy. The assassination attempt, which was supposed to be the end of Medici power, actually cemented their authority, showing everyone that the Magnificent was not just a man of great deeds, but also of great resilience. This episode also reflected the power play in a society where alliances and betrayals formed the foundation of almost all political decisions. The attempt to overthrow an influential and wealthy dynasty only reinforced how political and financial power is intertwined with the church and other external forces. For the Pazzi, the attempt to reverse this power balance ended in tragedy and with time faded from the public memory of Florence. For the Medici, the legacy of the conspiracy was a milestone, proof of their ability to overcome adversity and at the same time their skill in manipulating public opinion in their favor. Today, the Pazzi conspiracy remains a source of fascination, inspiring novels, films, and TV series. It reminds us that in history, a single event can change the fate of a city, a family, or even an entire era. However, history also teaches us that conspiracies, even when well-planned, often do not have the expected ending. Power, as always, attracts enemies.